One thing that can save you a lot of time and a lot of hassles when you're modifying objects on a page or in a publication like this is to be able to select multiple objects at one time and then even group them together so they're treated like one object. Just as an example, we've got two objects here that create our lake. We've got the lake itself, the freeform object, and then we've got the text box inside. So if we want to move the lake around, well, we have the text move with it. So what we're going to do now is open up another publication, so we're all on the same page here. Let's go to the Open button, navigate to the Lesson 6 folder of your exercise files, and open up Sign 6D. Give that a click. So that gets everybody caught up and in the same spot. Alright, so let's take that example of our lake and our text, and we want to group them together as one. It means we need to be able to select them both. So if I go to the border of my text box that says South Point Lake and get the four-sided arrow and click, I will select the text. Now if I want the lake selected as well, and I click on it, to select both, you need to hold down the Control key. So holding down the Control key on your keyboard allows you to select multiple objects. Now if these two should be treated as one, I may want to group them, and you can see that there's a little icon showing up here that represents group objects. So publishers smart enough to know that these two are kind of together, overlapping one another. They're both selected. Here's the quickest way to group them together into one. So if I click the Group Objects button, this is now one object, and you can see that I lose the handles around my text box. Now the icon down below has just changed slightly. I don't know if you notice that, but as I hover over it, you'll see that it's the Ungroup Objects button now. So whenever you click on an object, you'll know that it's grouped if this shows up. Okay, maybe these two should be grouped as well. Another way to select multiple objects is to create what we call a marquee. So if I go to the outside of both of these, I'm going to go to the top right corner here, and I'm going to click and drag. You can see there's a marquee selection. And I want to make sure that I engulf both the starburst and the text. Don't worry if you get part of another object, it won't be included in the selection. So now I've selected these two, and I can group them together by clicking the Group Objects button. Alright, how about down here? The date, time, and the address down here, these are objects as well, and they're all separate. If I want to move these as a group, it would be best to create a group of objects by clicking and dragging around the outside of all of these. Once they're all selected, I click that exact same button, Group Objects, and it's now one. I'm going to just scroll back up. You'll notice when you're using the Marquee Select, if you do go outside the borders and off the page, things will scroll over for you. So now we've got less objects than we started with. We've got one here instead of two, one here instead of two, and we've got one object here instead of three separate text boxes. So grouping and ungrouping, very easily done. If I wanted to ungroup these, I just click on the object, and now I've got the Ungroup Objects button, which I can click. Now I just want you to see that there's another place where you can access this from the Arrange menu, and I've still got those two objects selected. You can see I've got Group and Regroup as well, a button that doesn't show up by default. Regroup is just going to put them back together as a group, and you can see now I've got the Ungroup Objects button showing up here. So keep in mind, if you don't like shortcuts, you've got the Arrange menu. You've also got keyboard shortcuts. Control, Shift, and G is the same key combination that will group or ungroup depending on whether the object is already grouped or not. We'll deselect by clicking outside the object, and now when we want to move these things around, they'll move together as one. So that covers grouping, ungrouping, and of course remember to select multiple objects to group them together, hold down your Control key or use the Marquee Select.